There's a big change coming to the way residential real estate is bought and sold in the United States. And if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, then you need to know about this important change coming on August 17th of 2024 because it will affect the process for you. And in this video, I'm going to detail exactly what that change is and what it means for you. My name is Ben. I'm a lifelong resident of Oklahoma City, and I'm also a real estate advisor serving Oklahoma City and the surrounding suburbs. And my team and I love to help people just like you find their next home or their dream home right here in the Oklahoma City area. If you're thinking about buying or selling a home, we'd love to help. You can find all of my contact information down in the description of this video. Go ahead and give me a call, send me a text or an email, or better yet, use that Zoom link down below to book a 15-minute video call, and let's see if we might be a good fit to work together. Now let's talk about the change that's coming to the residential real estate industry in the United States. I'm not going to go deep into the history or the background of what led to this change, but the short version is that there was a class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and several large brokerages over real estate commissions and how those are paid. And one of the results of this series of lawsuits that took place is a new agreement that must be signed between buyers and their agents before that agent can show the buyer a single home. Now, this document is called the Buyer-Broker Agreement, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the new Buyer-Broker Agreement that we have for the state of Oklahoma, where I'm licensed, so that you can see exactly what is in that document and what you can expect and what the changes are from the way things operate now. This new rule goes into effect on August 17th, 2024, and it requires that a buyer-broker agreement be signed before a realtor can show a buyer a single home. And in this agreement, it spells out how much the realtor is going to get paid and what that payment source is going to be. Now, for the last several decades in this country, it has been customary for the seller of a home to pay both their agent's commission as well as the buyer's agent's commission. And while commissions have always been negotiable and will continue to be, the commission offering will no longer be listed on the MLS, the multiple listing service, for buyer's agents to see. In other words, it's going to be up to the buyer and their agent to negotiate whether or not the seller pays commission on the sale of that property. Now, before we dive into the agreement and exactly what it means for buyers, I want to give a quick word to sellers, because even though this document is specifically for buyers, it's going to affect sellers. Because the commission that a seller may or may not be offering to pay the buyer's agent is no longer going to be listed on the MLS. And so it is likely that buyers are going to be including in their offer to the seller a request that the seller pay the buyer agent's commission fee. Now, time will tell exactly how that plays out, and it will probably differ from state to state and from market to market. But just know that if you are a seller, it's likely that you're going to see something included in the offer requesting you to pay some or all of the buyer agent's commission. Now, I want to be very clear in this video that commission is negotiable. It always has been, and it will continue to be. Just know that that request could likely be coming in any offers that you receive. Now, let's pull up the buyer-broker agreement for the state of Oklahoma and see exactly what it says and what it means for buyers. Now, because I'm only licensed in the state of Oklahoma, I'm only going to show you the buyer-broker agreement for our state. And many states have an agreement that is very similar to this one, but it could be slightly different depending on the state you're in. But just know that if you plan to buy a home in the state of Oklahoma, you will need to have this document signed with your agent beginning August 17th of 2024 before that agent can show you a single home. What you're seeing on the screen now is the buyer-broker service agreement that must be signed between a buyer and their agent before that agent can show them a single home beginning August 17th, 2024 and moving forward. And I'm just going to briefly walk you through the different clauses that are in this contract so that you know exactly what it is that you'll be signing before you begin touring homes with your agent. And the first clause in this document is the purpose of the document. Essentially, you are looking to buy a home. And so you are entering into this agreement with a licensed real estate agent who is going to help you by providing those services in helping you find a home. The broker and buyer both acknowledge that a written agreement must be signed and entered into before the broker may begin showing properties to a buyer. Now, when it uses the term broker here, that applies to any real estate agent, realtor, a licensed agent who is operating under the covering of a broker, okay? Number 3 is buyer representation. You are saying that you have not signed a written brokerage agreement with another agent. In other words, you don't have a signed contract in place currently with another agent. Number 4, this is a new rule in Oklahoma as of about a year ago. I did a video on this last fall. And that is that the buyer is acknowledging they are a resident of the state of Oklahoma or intend to become a resident. The duration of the agreement is the start and end date of the agreement, and you will work this out with your agent. Whatever term you decide on, that will be spelled out here. If this section is left blank, then it defaults to a 60-day agreement. Clause number 6 of this contract says that either party may terminate this agreement with at least 3 business days notice in writing. In other words, if things aren't working out between the buyer and their agent, either side can cancel the agreement with written notice at least 3 days in advance. Now, there is one caveat to this section of the contract, and that is if the agent shows the buyer a property and then this contract gets canceled and that buyer goes out and buys that property that the agent showed them with a different agent within a defined number of days after the termination of the agreement, then the original agent is still owed compensation for that property. Now, it defaults to 60 days if left blank. Again, this will be something that is negotiated between the buyer and their agent. Clause number 7 in this contract is the compensation. This is how the buyer's agent gets paid. And this will be something that the buyer and their agent agree upon, again, before seeing a single home. So it says the compensation for the buyer's broker shall be, and then it says check only those apply. A, the buyer shall pay the broker at closing an amount equal to either a dollar amount or a percentage of the final gross sell or lease price, and the buyer shall receive a credit towards the payment of compensation in an amount equal to any payment made to the broker by any other broker or seller. What does that mean? That is essentially saying that the seller is going to pay the buyer agent's commission, right? That last sentence there, the buyer shall receive a credit in the amount equal to any payment made to the broker by any other broker or seller. So if a buyer and their agent request for the seller to pay the buyer agent commission fee, they include that percentage or dollar amount in the contract and the seller agrees to it, then this is where that would apply. The seller is paying the buyer's agent commission. Option B under compensation is the buyer would pay a retainer fee upon execution of the agreement. That means when the agreement is signed. This would be sort of like one might do with an attorney. They pay a retainer upfront for the services in advance. And then letter C is other. Some sort of other arrangement or agreement that the buyer and their agent come to. And that could be open to all sorts of interpretation. It then says, unless otherwise specified above, the compensation is due and payable upon closing. So at the closing table when the sale is finalized, the compensation shall apply to any purchase agreements executed during the term of this agreement or any extension of this agreement. And it also applies to purchase agreements executed within a certain number of days, 60 if left blank, after the expiration or termination of this agreement if the property acquired was presented to the buyer through brokerage services of the broker. Again, if the buyer, after this agreement expires or is canceled, goes out and buys a property that that agent showed them with a different agent within that specified period of time, then the original agent is still owed whatever commission was agreed upon in this section of the contract. Clause number 8 of this contract says that if the seller fails to close with no fault of the buyer, then compensation shall be waived. In other words, the buyer doesn't pay anything. However, if the buyer is the one to breach the contract, then the agent would still be owed a commission in this scenario. Paragraph number 9 says that the seller and the seller's agent are not required to offer to pay the buyer's agent's commission. Now, there are a couple of sub-paragraphs in this section, and the first is that if what the seller is offering to pay in buyer agent commission is equal to what was agreed upon between the buyer and their agent up in paragraph 7, then the buyer doesn't pay anything additional. If, however, there was a gap there, let's say what the seller was offering to pay the buyer's agent is 0.5% lower than what the buyer and the buyer's agent agreed upon, it would be the buyer's responsibility to come up with that difference to pay their agent's fee. However, if the seller is offering more than what the buyer and the buyer's agent agreed upon, the buyer's agent cannot take that additional money that's being offered. There are a few ways that that money can be dealt with or dispersed, and they are detailed in section B of paragraph 9. One is a credit to the buyer. So the buyer could actually receive a credit towards their closing cost or some other sort of credit through the closing of the transaction. Option 2 would be a credit to the seller. And then option number 3 would be some other sort of something that all parties have agreed to and negotiated. But at the end of the day, the buyer's agent cannot take a penny more than what was agreed to in paragraph 7 of this contract. Section number 10 of this contract states that the buyer's agent will not order anything without the buyer's permission. Things like surveys, inspections, title reports, anything like that. The buyer must give consent in order for the buyer's agent to order those things. And it's best practice, and has been for decades, for the buyer themselves to actually order those things like home inspections. Paragraph number 11 of this contract states that real estate agents often work with more than one client, and so the buyer who is signing this agreement understands that they are probably not the only buyer this agent is representing. Paragraph number 12 of this agreement states that the agent will not discriminate based on any factors, and those are spelled out here in the equal opportunity section of the contract. Paragraph number 13 just states that if there are multiple buyers entering into agreement with the agent, that all of the contracts collectively can be brought together and be considered as one contract, one agreement with this agent. And paragraph number 14 of this contract states that the buyer has received a copy of this contract as well as the disclosure of brokerage duties. Now, this is that disclosure of brokerage duties, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll just highlight a few things here. This essentially tells the buyer what the buyer's agent is expected to provide in terms of services for them while they are under contract. And it's things like treat all parties with honesty, receive all written offers and counter offers, put all of those offers in writing, present offers in a timely manner, keep everyone informed, keep confidential information confidential, essentially protect the buyer's interest throughout the entire process. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And if you tap that bell, you'll get a notification every time we post a new video so that you can stay up to date on the latest information in the Oklahoma City real estate market. And if you're thinking about a move to Oklahoma City, but you're not sure which neighborhood might be best for you, this next video is going to explain the top 7 neighborhoods in Oklahoma City and what you can expect in each of those so that you can see which one might be the best for you.